Turning now to one of our top stories, Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi has placed the entire UIF management under suspension. This after Auditor General Kwetu found irregular and fraudulent payment of COVID-19 relief funds by the Unemployment Insurance Fund. The Commissioner, CFO, COO and the head of the supply chain management process are among those who've been suspended. Nxesi says this will give the Special Investigating Unit a chance to conclude an investigation into what's been going on at the UIF. Let's get you reaction now. Bring in Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks. So, Matthew Parks, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So, it's one thing, isn't it, to speak about the suspensions of high-profile people, but the reality here is that the collapse of UIF systems and the abuse thereof is something that's affected millions of workers in this country directly.
Yes, look, I mean, this is workers' money. The UIF is workers' money, it's not government's money. So I think any action by government at any level to deal with corruption, wasteful expenditure, fraud, we would welcome it. We've had suspicions and we've had continuous reports throughout this entire period, the last 6 months, where many workers have come to us with complaints about corruption and fraud. These have ranged from instances where workers were denied the money that was given to the employer who should have given it to them, or they were underpaid by the employer. There have also been many instances where workers are paid less than what they were due by the UIF. And we know that in South Africa we have a huge problem of corruption at all levels, from government to the private sector to society at large. So I think we welcome government's efforts to deal with this issue. We have also been quite worried because part of the agreement between the UIF and employers and workers at NEDLAC was that every cent that is paid by the UIF to the employers on behalf of workers must be accounted for, that those employers have to, within 7 days, provide proof of payment to the UIF that indeed they have paid those workers, and they also have paid those workers what was due to them. And that has not happened. So I think we welcome the auditor's reports. We welcome that this is a first step in cleaning up and providing a proper picture of what's going on. But I think there has to be consequences, that whoever stole the money, be it in the UIF, be it in the Department of Labour or other government departments, or the applicants or employers, they have to be dealt with. They have to be prosecuted. Those monies must be returned to the UIF because that is workers' monies. So this is a welcome first step. But we want to really see that government implements the findings of the Auditor General in full, and that those who have stolen, those who have committed fraud must be held accountable. At the same time, I think we also do not want to see us delaying payments to workers. To date, about 9 million payments have been processed. That's about 41 billion rand. It's been the single largest injection of relief into the economy. Workers are waiting for this. So we do not want to see a repeat of what happened a week ago when the AG first highlighted these instances of money being paid to prisoners, to military personnel, to deceased persons. We don't want to see a suspension of payments because literally we have millions of workers and their families waiting for this money. Many of them have been delayed since April. So we must get the right balance. We must deal with corruption, but we must also not delay payments to workers.
But we also, at the same time, Matthew Parks, cannot act as though we are surprised to hear that the UIF process was being manipulated. Just 2 months ago, there were reports of companies claiming for deceased workers. You hear of people who, for example, are not without employment but have submitted claims, and some of those claims have gone through. Now you're hearing that the entire management team will be put on suspension while an SIU investigation goes on. But it is to a degree disingenuous for government to act as though the issues raised by the Auditor General were not flagged by Labour and other organisations right at the beginning.
Yes, but look, we've been flagging it quite from the beginning. You remember reports of pensioners getting 5 million rand in Hammanskraal. And we've been flagging that many workers have been bombarding us genuinely and legitimately that they have not been paid what is due to them. So I think for us it's quite frustrating. But I think also what is quite shocking in the AG's report is that the systems of government, the IT systems, are not speaking to each other. So the UF system was not speaking to SASSA's database, was not speaking to SARS or to Home Affairs or other government databases, because many of these things could have been prevented easily.
Let me ask you then, Matthew Parks, just on that point that you make, apologies, about how there should have been a coordination of Home Affairs and the UIF systems, for example, to see in cases where people are indeed deceased, in cases where these are people who, we heard one example of someone who was in a correctional facility, an inmate who'd applied for funds and actually got them, I believe. It makes you wonder if it is just incompetence or a corrupt intention.
Look, I think it's a mixture of all of them. I don't think the UIF is an isolated instance of corruption. We know that it's a cancer throughout the state, throughout society, but we've been very concerned from day one about the capacity of the UIF on many fronts. There have been huge challenges from the IT systems to the call center to the verification process, etc. And so really the AG report is quite a damning report. It is unbelievable how government systems simply don't even speak to each other. It can't be that difficult of a thing to link the IDs by which you apply for your UIF relief to a Home Affairs database. It can't be a difficult thing to pick up on the PERSOL database of the Public Service Administration that these are people who are employed by the Defence Force. So that is quite alarming, and it really paints a very worrying picture that the amount of corruption might be very large. And again, when workers are battling to survive, when they've lost wages, when they've lost their jobs, they need to have food to take care of their families, this is very frustrating and alarming to them. And we can't overemphasize that this is workers' money. It's not state money. It does not belong to anybody else. It belongs to workers. It is meant to help workers in the most difficult moment of crisis. And to have people who are so unethical stealing from workers at this very crisis, it really is quite shocking. But we really hope that the government won't just issue a report, but they'll actually go and fetch those people or take them straight to prison and confiscate their assets. Because really too often we know who the culprits are. We've heard countless commissions of inquiry into corruption, countless reports by the AG, and yet we've seen so little action by government to arrest people and to confiscate their money and take it back to where it belongs.
And to their credit, we did hear today that about 38 cases are already before the courts as a result of findings by the Auditor General. But Matthew Parks, Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, always good to speak to you, sir. Thank you.